Hello, it's Noir Vortex, and I've been drawing and painting a bit more recently, so I thought I'd do a little bit of an art vlog again, talking about recent pieces. Just talking a bit about what was going through my head with each piece, sort of the rough idea. I've been doing these black on white paintings on paper a lot recently, which are good because you don't have much to lose, right? If it's not like I'm working on a big canvas or something, where you feel, well, I mean, I never really feel that precious because you always paint over what you've done, but with just doing it on paper, you especially lose that idea of pressure of, the sanctity of the image or whatever. So it frees you up in a lot of ways. Anyway, so without further ado, basically the format's going to be, I'm going to show each piece on screen, like probably here, and just talk about it basically. So the first image is a self-portrait, first one I've done for a while, I guess, and I've called it Artist Liar. So it's done, I actually just sketched it initially with a little bit of pencil, like thin line, and then I went over it with paint. It's a self-portrait. I was trying to capture my mood at the time. My mood recently has been a bit downcast, a bit pessimistic. I think this is actually reflected in the work. Definitely, I think there is that is reflected in a lot of the tone of the work. The tone of the work is in general a bit downtrodden and probably a bit moody. I think moody is the right word for it. So as you can see in this painting, I look a bit downcast. I don't look especially happy, but pensive. Pensive would be the word I'd describe the mood of how I've expressed myself in this piece. My eyes looking down, they're not looking forward, they don't look especially confident. Maybe thoughtful, but not especially, I don't look especially optimistic, right? I quite like it. I mean, it's, like I said, most of these paintings I've been doing recently are just sort of sketch. There's another self-portrait I did there, actually, which is a painting, which is much more, I've been trying to get that experiment with just really being expressive with my brushwork and also just not thinking too much, trying to feel more than think, I guess. So there's also that self-portrait I did, but I'll just focus on the recent paintings on paper and card. So that's that. I mean, this title, Artist Liar, is, I don't know why exactly I chose that title. I think it was something to do with trying to think about how artists, basically, in a sense, are portraying a fiction to try and tell a greater truth, maybe? Something like that. I don't know. Anyway, let's go on to the more interpretive, sort of dreamlike stuff. This next one is called Blood and Oil. It's one of the more unusual ones, for sure. I'm doing this, so there's a sort of like vaguely humanoid figure in it. It looks like a sort of, like I said, vaguely it's like a landscape with a sort of path and this sort of circle central to the composition. This is actually one of the more unusual images, for sure, like in terms of the imagery that I've generated. It's, I don't know what it is really. It's like, I mean, the figure's vaguely female. I mean, there's like a suggestion of a breast, right? But it doesn't have any real sexuality or any, apart from the breast, I suppose, being a sexual image. But the rest of it's very divorced from that, really. It's like a sort of strange, almost pitiful creature in a sort of odd landscape. I call it Blood and Oil. Now, I'm not exactly, it's just suggested to me, maybe because of the black. The word oil came to me, and blood and oil, and it's definitely sort of a fecund image. It's coming from the sort of more demonic, darker sides of the human mind, I guess. But it's one of those where, I don't know, were to try and explain explicitly what I meant. It's one of those deeper, darker images that you just retch up from your subconscious, right? Buy the ticket, lose your mind. It's again, it's like a sort of expressionistic rendering of a figure. This looks like a sort of, I get a sort of impression of a witch or something from this painting. There's no explicit gender. really there. It could be male or female, it's androgynous, you know. It doesn't really look masculine or feminine especially. Buy the ticket, lose your mind. That's just the title that came to me when I looked at it for a while. I think what I was trying to hint at there is this sort of, we always have this idea, you know, like the LSD gurus and the psychedelic sort of gurus and everything. I mean, I know I'm very into all that sort of world and those ideas, but there is also a dark side to all of that, you know. I mean, a good example like R.D. Laing, right, where sort of alternative to psychiatry, he was a doctor and psychologist, and he tried to sort of start the anti-psychiatry movement and was trying to radically change the way that we interpreted madness, which in a lot of ways was very commendable. But I do think in the process of doing that, a lot of people actually did lose their minds. You know, it didn't really work. His methods didn't really work for him. So I think I'm trying to sort of suggest in a sort of pessimistic manner that yes, we can have all these idealistic notions about you know, psychedelic treatments helping everybody, but some people are just probably not gonna be fully healed from it, which is a sad realization, right? But I think I'm trying to hint at that. I know there's a dark side to the whole psychedelic counterculture thing. People do lose themselves sometimes in that sort of hall of mirrors, which is the psychedelic experience. And I think I'm sort of trying to, you know, this sort of figure has almost got like a grotesque grin, and it's got these glasses so you can't really see what they're really thinking because you can't see their eyes. So again, it's sort of a pessimistic image, right? But it's sort of what I'm diving into now. Creature. So again, in a similar mould to the painting I did before, or I was talking about before, the first one, the first images one, the blood and oil. This is similarly quite just an unusual surrealist, semi-biomorphic flesh. Almost looks tumorous in a way, like a sort of living tumour, which is a bit disturbing. This is actually one of the ones that disturbs me more than the others. It's maybe possibly influenced by Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. I think potentially that was in my mind a bit. So that's a story, short story we should read by Harlan Ellison. I won't completely give it away, but there is this sort of in part of the story, basically, there is this sort of living blob that has a real advanced human consciousness, but is essentially a blob of just flesh that can't move. So it's a similar horrendous idea to that, maybe, but also it's just a weird, like, biomorphic landscape, I guess. It's one of my least favourite of these ones, but I think it's a bit cliched in a lot of respects. You know, it's like, oh, am I trying to be Francis Bacon sort of thing? But there's nothing wrong with that. You have to just go through those phases of exploring stuff that's already been done a load of times before to really get into something new. That's what a lot of art is, really, just picking up an old project and trying to do something new with it. Hermit Wondering. Now, I quite like this, actually. Like, at first I did like it, but I think it's becoming one of my favourites of this new series of work. So it basically, I mean, it's pretty much like it says on the tin. It's like a sort of expression of a monk-like hermit figure but I mean, just compositionally, it's interesting. You've got this sort of window, which is, I quite like how it's rendered. It's quite minimalistic, but with some like dry brush, very like, it's not overdone. The face I quite like. I've sort of made one of the eyes abstracted and more covered in shadow. I just like it. I mean, I think it just works as a sort of strong image. The sort of composition is fairly strong with some room to breathe as well. I don't think it's too, because I think sometimes I can go a bit over the top and just overwork things and try and, you know, instead of just letting there be negative space or let there be space where there's nothing, or just let there be space. I can just try and fill in and things for the sake of it sometimes. But in this instance, I don't think I've gone too far with that, and I think it's got a nice balance of composition. Again, in terms of what it means, it's just it's an image. It's an image like captured from a dream of this sort of wandering hermit. The idea of hermit lifestyle has been in my mind a bit recently. I don't think I'd ever do it myself, but I definitely have my moments of living a hermit-like existence. It's just sort of the idea of refuge from the world, and it's been in my mind of late, so it probably represents that, I guess, like just the idea of just cutting yourself off from the world a bit sometimes it can be a good way to heal from things, and also just, I think it's required, especially if you're an introverted sort, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but obviously it's a question of extremes, right? You don't, I think extreme hermits who cut themselves completely off from the world often end up just losing touch with reality, probably. But yeah, it's just something that's been on my mind recently. This is quite an interesting one. Inhuman, Malignant. So the title's pretty interesting. It's one of the first title I came up with for these pieces. The first of these pieces, actually. So in this one, you've got a sort of painting within a painting within a painting, right? Which is quite interesting. The thing I like about this one is the depth and also the movement. There is quite a sense of movement with the brush strokes, this sort of rhythmic, quite violent movement around the sort of central figure, which is almost like a head, with only the head inside a head. And I do think there is something I'm trying to express here, which is more of a sort of an idea. The title Human, Malignant. I think I'm sort of exploring the idea of post-humanism, right? So the idea of which could be on the cusp of in 50 years of just augmenting ourselves with technology, and what will we become? You know? It's actually a question. I don't really answer these questions, of course, but the sort of outside layer head is it's almost monstrous, and then there's like this humanoid figure inside. So maybe I'm trying to suggest that if we are going to evolve into something else which is not human or beyond human, then maybe we'll lose our humanity on some level. But I don't know. I mean, this is not something I know. It might be brilliant. It might be awesome. It might be, but I have a sort of sneaking suspicion that it will be just set up a new sort of even more wider, sort of class divide, and the people that have access to this technology will just be like rich billionaires. So and they'll make those gaps and even larger. But maybe I'm just cynical. Inhuman androgen. So I don't know exactly why I called it this. I guess because the face is vaguely feminine, but also a bit androgynous, I guess. I do like this one. It's got a certain charm to the image for sure, and I think it's a bit different to the others as well in terms of I've been a bit more minimalistic with the actual face and the way I've rendered the nose and the mouth and everything, but it does actually work, I think. Much more faster image. It didn't take that long to make this one. I'm pretty happy with it. I don't know exactly what meaning I'm trying to explore. I'm just basically painting a sort of vaguely androgynous face, right? So I don't know what else to say for that one. It's just a rendering of a figure. That's it. This one's quite an interesting one when I was painting it. Judges in a court of lies. So I've been thinking about this a lot recently, about how we have the system of law, but so often it's corrupt in a way. Hence the court of lies. People just get trapped by these systems. I mean, they're necessary as well, I think, on some level. You do need a justice system. You need some semblance of law. I'm not a complete anarchist in the sense that I don't think we should abolish the law courts or anything like that. But I think I was just trying to portray the fact that often people in the world, and I mean, even though it's got a lot better over time, generations and everything, still people just get trapped in these sort of situations where you just end up in front of some judges who will judge the law. I think this has been in my mind just because I worry a lot about, I have a few debts and that, and I just always worry about I'm going to just end up and I'm trying to clear all that stuff, but I always worry that life will just get progressively somehow worse one day when, and I'll just through, and people could say, that's your own fault, but I mean, some of the debts I have are just ridiculous, like things like disability benefit debts and shit like this, and you just think, why? but so I don't know, there's something, maybe I'm just thinking about being a victim too much and not taking ownership of control of things I can in my life, but that's sort of what I was trying to portray with that sort of sense of alienation from a society that's supposed to be a society. But I still think we live in the age of we're still ruled over by Thatcher's children who don't really believe that there is such a thing as a society. I think so. There's something of that to it, right? There's the feeling of I don't really feel like many of us feel like we live in a society anymore. We sort of feel like atomized individuals who are just selfishly driven by whatever. This is the final one. Solar Symmetrical. I'm pretty happy with this, actually. Something William Blake like about it. It's simplicity, but also some sort of geometry to it, which is not tasteful. Sort of sun feeling, and then there's like a pyramid and what looks like a cross, which is interesting because I'm not religious, but obviously the iconography of Christianity is burnt into my brain and burned into my mind, I think, forever. Like most people who've been brought up in a sort of moderately Christian way. Like my parents were both Church of England. I never really bought into any of it or buy it. I mean, I've grown up in my early life in childhood in a church, so I guess it's obvious that all that symbolic language stays here. So, but I like this actually. I'm pretty happy with this. One of my favourites of this new bunch of work. It has a spiritual aspect to it, but it looks Christian. But I'm not Christian. I'm not a believer in Christ. I think Christ is dead. I don't think he's rising again. I think he was probably a great human philosopher of his time, but I mean, he's not really modern anymore. And I mean, I sort of do actually subscribe to some level to Nietzsche's concept that Christianity is essentially a slave morality. Like it's a morality of the slaves. Because of the whole idea of the life being granted paradise in a hereafter. That was Nietzsche's main point, I think, anyway, with the whole slave morality. It does get misinterpreted a lot, but that's why it's one of the reasons I don't believe in it, is because I think we have to make our lives here and now, as opposed to the hope of some reward, divine reward, and some hereafter. So I think that basically that's why Nietzsche thought it was the morality of the slaves. But anyway, Nietzsche aside, I'm pretty happy with this, and I think again, like, the negative space is nicely done, but also there's some nice white space I've just left there and not gone over the top with all over the composition. That's all of them. That's quite a long video, actually, 17 minutes. I hope it's given you some insight into my recent work and just sort of the thinking behind some of the pieces. Like and subscribe if you like the content. I'm going to try and do more art-related content now. I'm doing more art, actually, so this channel is always going to be just art and philosophy stuff, and the occasional vlog where I just moan, but that's that. So yeah, leave comments below if you have any comments on the artwork itself. Constructive, please. Don't just say yes shite. It's not really nice, is it? It might be true, but at least be constructive. Anyway, bye.